Coach Jay Young, still in the lead. He got 3 correct this week. He actually didn't lead the league this past week, week 11, but still has a 7-point lead in the pick'em with 49 points. Coach McDowell is in second with 42. It looks like Handy Quacks, Senators, Iron Dogs, and the Alerts all got 4 right last week. But man, we can almost crown Jay Young at this point. I think he has some sort of crystal magical ball or something that he's using, because he's really just been kicking ass in the pick'em. So, but still some time left.
The Power Rankings. Hey, who's number 1? Hey, who's second ass? The Dynasty Power Rankings.
The Power Rankings article this week was written by Power Rankings Association member Brandon McDowell. He did a great job. The picture was a picture of Coach Johnny C. via his very big win over the Yellow Peril, alongside his defensive coordinator, Jerry Sandusky. It looked like they were in some sort of auditorium or gymnasium with children. I'm not sure what the Dynasty Ethics manager is going to say about this, but seemed very sketchy. Anyway, as we take a look here at the Power Rankings, Brutal Deluxe remains as the number 1 ranked team. Number 2, we have the Amber Alerts. They are now the number 2 team. They got bumped up from number 3 with that, again, big win from last week. The number 3 team are the Riverdale Scoopers, dropping down from number 2 at 9-2, best record in the entire league. Yet they have dropped down to the 3rd ranked team, probably based upon their somewhat easy schedule and their point production. So Bubba Gump Shrimp has gone to the 4th team, going up from 5. Yellow Peril has dropped down to the 5th team. The Hunters are now at 6. The Negrodamus are at 7. Soul Glow has bumped up to 8. Handy Quacks is down to 9. Hong Kong is at 10. Iron Dogs and Senators at the bottom as usual.
Now, let's take a look into the future with next week's matchups.
It's crunch time, bitches. 4 more weeks left in the regular season. It's time to turn on the goddamn Jets and start fucking people up. And in the Jumbo Donuts game of the week, and possibly the game of the year, hell, maybe the game of the century, we have the 8-3 Brutal Deluxe versus the 9-2 Riverdale Scoopers. These two division leaders are a combined 17-5 this year. Scoop owns a 1-0 record against Brutal all time. Brutal's got the number 1 rushing attack in the league. The winner of this showdown has a very good chance of wrapping up the number 1 seed. The next game is Soul Glow, 5-6 Soul Glow versus 1-10 Iron Dogs. We're going to talk a little bit more about this matchup later on in the podcast. The next matchup is the 1-10 Rockdalian Senators up against the 5-6 Handy Quacks. Both teams are really only playing for pride at this point. The next team, or game, is the 7-4 Yellow Peril versus the 5-6 Negroes. Right now, Peril is on the outside looking in. After a tough loss to the Alerts last week, he needs a win to keep up with the pack. But a win against Negroes and his number 1 passing attack is never an easy task. The next game is the 4-7 Hong Kong Cavs versus the 7-4 Heritage Park Hunters. Coach Whiffen seems to have conceded that he's going to be in the bottom 4 again this season for the 3rd year in a row. But he's still playing tough, and I do know that via that that open letter he sent to his fans, he's crushed about this very disappointing season. The Hunters will need to stay focused if they want to pick up a victory, however, against Coach Whiffen. And lastly, we have the 6-5 Bubba Gump Shrimp up against the 8-3 Johnny C's Amber Alerts. We got 2 of the 3 top-ranked Foursquare players in the world in this game, in this matchup. The Alerts are 3-2 against Bub all time. These are the 2 top point scorers in the Dynasty this season, so get ready for an offensive orgasm like no other.
We have ourselves breaking news from the world of the Dynasty.
Brought to you by Jumbo Donuts.
Well, slap me around and call me Susie, because we got ourselves some more trades that have just tinkered its way through here. I knew we're on the trade deadline. Looks like I've been handed 3 more trades that have just been approved. I said earlier in the podcast that we likely may get some more trades, and I was correct. The first trade is involving Brutal Deluxe and Handy Quacks. Actually, there's 2 trades involving those 2 squads. The first trade, though, looks like Brutal has received quarterback Drew Brees. Wow. Drew Brees, who led Handy Quacks last season to a Dynasty championship. Maybe he will do the same for Coach McDowell. Anyway, Brutal receives Drew Brees and the San Francisco 49ers defense. And in return, Handy Quacks receives Big Ben Roethlisberger, wide receiver Earl Bennett, and a 2012 5th and 9th round pick. The second trade that is involving both of these teams is a trade that sends wide receiver Deshaun Jackson from Handy Quacks to Brutal, and Handy Quacks receives wide receiver Malcolm Floyd and a 2012 10th round pick. And finally, the third trade is between the Amber Alerts and Handy Quacks. So again, Handy Quacks slapped his whole goddamn roster on the trade block after his loss to the Scoopers last week, and he's just going balls out, selling his squad for next year. But in the trade, Handy Quacks sends running back Frank Gore to the Amber Alerts. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Johnny C. a couple years ago murdered Frank Gore's mother. So I'm actually surprised that Gore is willing and wanting to come and join the Amber Alerts. But nonetheless, Gore does join the Alerts. The Alerts also received a 2012 8th round selection. And in return, Handy Quacks receives Johnny C's pretty much one and only draft pick remaining, which is the 2012 4th round pick. So, in total, we had ourselves 5 trades that have all gone through here during the trade deadline. It doesn't surprise me. Contenders are just going for it. You got to do that in this league. You gotta want it. So those are the trades. Well, enough about trades. On the Jumbo Donuts hotline, we have the Dynasty Achievement Analyst, the Dynasty Road Trip Advisor, the Dynasty 6 Champion, Coach of the surging 5-6 Soul Glow, Coach Brian Tavaleri. Coach, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Scoop. I appreciate it.
Great. Now, first of all, I'm not sure if you heard last week's podcast with the guards, but I think my IQ dropped about 1,000 points just being part of it. I just want to thank you for not being a guard and for being a competent, intelligent coach and human being.
Well, I really appreciate that, Scoop. And let me say, I did listen to last week's podcast, and, if it's possible for 2 people to share a brain, I say that we go out and we find the guards, one to share, because they really don't know what they're talking about. I've never heard coaches before. I've never heard coaches talk about fantasy football with that amount of knowledge, and by that amount of knowledge, I mean none.
I have to agree with you wholeheartedly, and that is basically the response that I've gotten throughout the league. It's